Afternoon. It is 3 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. We are at the Wichita Area Metropolitan Planning Organization Transportation Policy Meeting. It's Tuesday, July 11th at 3 o'clock. So thank you for everyone who is joining us in person and virtually. We'll go ahead and get started with the regular business. First on the agenda is to approve today's agenda for July 11th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve? Dan, motion. Is there a second? Troy, all those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? I would love for someone to oppose one time just to see what we would end up doing. Next is the approval of the TPB minutes from June 13th, 2023. I hope everyone's had an opportunity to review the minutes. If so, I would entertain a motion to approve. Troy is egging to do it. Dan wants to second. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Now I know, and it's not that. Yeah, thank you. All right, so next on the agenda is the director's report with Chad, but I do want to point out this morning when I was getting ready, I was watching KSN and Chad was a guest and did a fantastic job. So hopefully you'll tell a little bit about that too.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Transportation Policy Body members. Like our chair said this morning at 6 a.m., there was an interview with the KSN. There was only 2 minutes airtime. All the staff are making efforts to reach out to public on seeking input and surveys on our website, not only on the long-range transportation plan, but also transit study and electric vehicle technologies and, in developing this plan. So we had 2 minutes, but we requested public input. The primary reason is as COVID changed the way we travel, we shop, and we go for entertainment. Are we in the right direction? What are the priorities that we should keep in mind? Because funding is always limited. When funding is limited, how do we make sure that we are meeting each other's needs? What are those priorities? So those are the reasons why these surveys were developed, that staff, whether we are in the right direction on developing this transportation system. And thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all. Madam Chair, Becky. So primarily the long-range transportation plan development, how great our Wichita area transportation system is when compared to many major cities, how the travel time is very conducive to many, and they enjoy the quality of life here as well. So those are some of the things that were discussed. Of course, we all are working on safety. Safety is important for transportation system in all regions, not just the Wichita area. So with that, today's agenda item has a few. Before agenda, I want to thank everyone because the quorum was so important today because our commissioners have a meeting in Sedgwick County. So we appreciate your support, your leadership, and the way all jurisdictions come together, how you make this agency's leadership so meaningful in decision-making process of the transportation. And then KDOT comes from Topeka and all various entities from you drive from far. We appreciate your support at WAMPO and your leadership. We have a few items in this report. We would like to go as quickly as possible, and some staff would chime in to update on certain items. So the first item is TIP projects status. So let me request Nick to briefly update the status of TIP projects.
Thank you, Chad. This is the report on the bi-monthly update on TIP project statuses. As you've heard before, the TIP policy document requires bi-monthly reports on any projects that are programmed to receive WAMPO sub-allocated federal funding in the current federal fiscal year or that received it in a past federal fiscal year but are not yet finished. And this is the bi-monthly update that was already presented to the TAC on June 26, 2023, and now is being presented to you at the TPB. And this is just an image of the table for that update that is linked to in your packets with a change. First, it was noted at the TAC meeting on the 26th that the Valley Center Meridian Avenue project now has an obligation date of September 2023 and a letting date of October 2023. That is included in the packet, but what we found out about recently enough that it could not be incorporated into the packet is that the Haysville, Seneca and 63rd Street Bike Ped Pathway project, which will be presented on a little later by Will Black, will now have an anticipated obligation date of October 2023 and letting date of November 2023. And that's all I have on that, Chad.
Thank you so much, Nick. And the next item we have is on safety. We are pleased to work with various jurisdictions and KDOT on safety action plan, comprehensive safety action plan. So let me request Ashley to present the status of the grant application. And also we are very thankful to you for writing these letters of support. Ashley.
Thank you. My name is Ashley Byers and I'm the Transportation Planning Manager here at WAMPO. And we were able to submit our comprehensive safety action plan, actually our Safe Streets and Roads for All grant application early. It was due on July 10th, but we got it submitted on June 30th. That was very exciting. And we'll have two kind of buckets of projects that we asked for funding for: pilot behavioral strategies and before and after strategies. And the state of Kansas, or KDOT, is providing 15% of the local match for this project, which is absolutely amazing, which then required the local match from all of the jurisdictions to be only 5%, which was a lot easier to ask for you all to commit to. We have Aaron and Kendra online. Do you have anything you'd like to mention about this process? They're with BNN.
Hi, this is Erin. Sorry, I'm trying to get my camera working, but no, I think that pretty much covers it, and we should be finding out later in the year about the funding. So we will be continuing to work with you in the meantime to wrap up the CSAP plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. On the next item, Ashley, please provide us the public engagement status as well.
Sure. So for the MTP 2050 public engagement update, we have been going everywhere that will have us to talk about our MTP survey. We've done a bunch of pop-up events and handed out our WAMPO pins and other swag that actually the KDOT law enforcement liaison folks gave us, which was wonderful because people like free stuff. We've also had some stakeholder listening sessions where we've gotten to get some really good input from specific groups of people and also from members of the public. We're going to be having a few more of those before the survey closes on July 31st. So if you haven't taken the survey, please do. We would really want your input.
Okay, Ashley, next couple of items to transit and electrical survey.
Thank you. So we also have a survey for the Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Transportation Plan, which focuses on transportation needs for older adults and people with disabilities, as well as low-income people. We have gone to the Downtown Transit Center a few times to talk with people as they were getting on and off buses to try to get their input and get them to take the survey. And we'll be reaching out more in order to get more input. So if you haven't taken that one, please take that survey. And then the next survey I have is the electric vehicle plan survey. So we are working on developing a plan for where electric vehicle charging stations should go in our area. And so we need to know what people know about electric vehicles and any concerns that they have about them. And this one will go until the end of August. So please take our survey.
Ashley, can I jump in real quick? So I was at the Sedgwick County Association of Cities meeting on Saturday, and I mentioned the 3 cities, and then asked county staff if they would go ahead and send the information out to everyone who is a member of SCAC. And then I asked our city communications team if we'd push the information out. So we might, the email that you forwarded to me, we might want to forward to the TPB also, so everybody can share with their entities. Ashley came to my district advisory board meeting last night and talked about the EV survey. And we had a great discussion. People were really interested and it was good information. So any way that we can help promote the surveys, I know they'll appreciate. Also, there's a card going around and I forgot to mention, I asked staff if we could have a card for now Secretary of Transportation, Kelvin Reed, on behalf of WAMPO to congratulate him for his new role. So I know Commissioner Dennis just came in. We'll want to make sure he gets it signed. And if any visitors or staff want to sign it, that'd be great too. The more the merrier. Thank you.
Thanks, Vicky. The next item we have to report to you is the UPWP Unified Planning Work Program Report. In your packets on page 19, there is a status of tasks and progress that's made. The format is designed the way our chair wanted, and Ashley helped in making the format. Also in your in the packet is the Unified Planning Work Program quarterly task update and report to you. So that's also in there. Staff had been accomplishing various tasks related to safety plan and also the new contracts for regional transit plan, and then travel demand model project, as well as economic reports and data analysis for economic trends as well. So all of those are going on. And then on that note, we also have hired a full-time staff, senior accountant. We had been, it's been a few months that we were looking for filling this position to have smoother operations and coordination with KDOT as well in reimbursement packages. So we're pleased to introduce to you Kyle Thomas. Kyle, could you please? Welcome, Kyle, and thank you. Kyle is graduated from Wichita State University in accounting, and he has tons of experience with complex accounting processes and systems. Prior to this, he was in InfoSync, and so he had been here 2 weeks so far, very helpful to all the staff. So primarily the UPWP is, lining up staff to the tasks to be accomplished. So all that is in the packets. If any questions, we are happy to clarify. Any additional information, we are happy to provide to you as well. The next item we have is the public comment period that, the Transportation Improvement Program Amendment number 4. The amendment numbers are scheduled over a period of year in our planning process. So this is number 4 amendment. So the public comment period is now available from June 30 till July 14th. Just to inform you that pretty soon we will come to TAC members and then TPB members seeking your approvals on the amendment projects as well. So that's just a status update for you. The next item is KDOT Safety Corridor Pilot Project Program on I-135 corridor. This is between Newton and Park City. There's a great group of minds that came together for this coalition, studying the safety, crashes, fatalities, and the types of improvements that we need to make, both in terms of awareness, public awareness, as well as enforcement, as well as design. What are those that's ongoing? At some point, we are looking forward to have a presentation for you in the next few month or two. So that's the status on that. While we are on corridor projects, I also want to share with you that K254 corridor project is also coming along. We had second meeting, Mayor from Bel Air and various county commissioners and all cities and counties are part of this K254 corridor. We'll update you as time progresses, as the study evolves as well. Also is K15 corridor. Pretty soon we'll be working closely with the KDOT on K15 corridor as well. With that, the final item on this report is there is a summit on walk, bike, roll, statewide active transportation summit that's going to be in McPherson on September 20 to 22. So that's all the report we have for this. And just to give you an overview of today's agenda, we have the project selection committee recommendations, that the short range transportation improvement program, the funding commitments and the changes to those are there for as an action item. And then the status of transportation improvement program projects. So those are the status today that is upcoming. With that, Madam Chair, I'm sorry, Becky, this is back to you.
Any questions or comments for Chad? All right, you did such a good job. We don't have any. Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And welcome, Commissioner Howell. Good to see you. All right, next on the agenda is consent agenda item. We have two consent agenda items, video creation services contract, and then also a regional transit implementation plan contract. I would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda items. Thank you. A second? Troy, thank you for the second. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Awesome. Motion passes. Next, we have public comments. Is there anyone here from the community that would like to have 3 minutes of public comment? Great. Jane, thank you. Jane, if you want to go to the microphone and make sure you state your name for the record. Thank you.
My name is Jane. My name is Jane Burns, and I live in Wichita. And in the past, I came to your meetings to plead on behalf of the third of Wichitans outside vehicles. That is on behalf of school children, seniors, tourists, disabled, low income, young adults, and just trendy, healthy adults. Today, I want to point out the national news item that the number of pedestrians killed in crashes by cars and trucks in 2022 is a 40-year high. Last year, the Wichita Police Traffic Captain stated that Wichita trends are similar to that very high national trend. In the wonderful WAMPO 2050 listening session I attended last Friday, the very clear messages from the only other participants, much younger people, younger than me, was safety for folks outside of cars, safety, and to mass transit, clear messages. I urge your consideration of those very clear messages. But I've also looked at the list of the folks on the WAMPO 2050 committee, and they are transportation staffers and decision makers who I like and respect, but many of whom have shown unwavering priority for funding vehicles and highways. Please add a couple of social workers and health professionals and other mainstream perspectives, folks who have much different people-friendly mindsets than just vehicles and highways. Please. I hear there's good federal transportation money coming up. You probably know lots more than I do about that. Please, please respect and fund safe, alternative transportation for those young people who will be your age, my age in 2050. Please fund for the future, which will be different than now. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Comments? I'm willing to take them all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane. We appreciate your being here today and then also for your continued advocacy work for this area. So thank you. Next, moving along on the agenda, we have the Project Selection Committee from June 12th, 2023 recommendations. So Ashley, I think you're up next.
Thank you. Right. So the Project Selection Committee met on June 12th for 2 actions: the Carbon Reduction Program project selections, and then also a CRRSAA funding action. And so we'll talk through both of those. So Carbon Reduction Program funding, or CRP funding, is a new suballocated funding program that came from when the bill, the bipartisan infrastructure law, was passed in November of 2021. And Carbon Reduction Program, or CRP, is all about reducing CO2 emissions from transportation. So there were some federal delays in getting the funding. And so we did a call for projects for 3 years, 2022, 2023, and 2024, and it equaled a little bit over 3.9 million. The schedule is on the screen. And so we did a call for projects from March 1st to May 1st, and then we scored projects and had the meeting on June 12th, and then talked about the recommendations at the June TAC, and now we're here today. If you all vote to make these awards, they will then be included in the next TIP amendment and will be incorporated into the TIP in October. And then the call for projects for the 2025 and 2026 funding, CRP funding, will be included with our much larger call for projects that will occur in from September to January. That's part of the TIP and NTP call for projects. So we received 6 projects for this CRP funding. The first 2 are Wichita projects. And so we have the multimodal facility, which is the transit center in Delano. But this funding was specifically for bike parking and EV chargers. Then the Redbud Path from Woodlawn to K96, the Maple Street Pathway for Sedgwick County, and Mays had 45th and Tyler intersection improvements, which was a roundabout with a bike ped path. Bel Air submitted 53rd Street multi-use path between Oliver and Woodlawn, and Valley Center submitted a Seneca Street multi-use path between 5th and 4th. So this map shows all the projects. They are the blue lines. And so you can see where they are across the region. They're pretty spread out, so that's good. And now Peter will be talking about the actual recommendations that the PSC made.
Thank you, Ashley. My name is Peter again, Principal Engineer here at WAMPO. So PSC and TAC recommended awarding funding for the following projects. So for first, we have the Maple Street Pathway, sponsored by Sedgwick County. They chose to award about $40,000. That just gets them up to their 80% federal funding maximum. And then we have the project sponsored by Bel Air, the 53rd Street multi-use pathway, and the Seneca Street multi-use pathway sponsored by Valley Center. They chose to award $292,000 and about $417,000 respectively. And that gets both of those projects up to their 80% federal funding maximum. The multimodal facility sponsored by Wichita, the PSC chose to award $1 million. And as Ashley was describing, it's a very large project. That $1 million will go to funding the electrical vehicle charging aspects and bike storage parts of that project. And then finally, the PSC recommended that the remainder of the funding be awarded to the Redbud Path, which, if our suballocation for 2023 of CRP funding is the same for 2024, should come out to about $2,234,000 for the Redbud Path. And then the other matter the PSC considered was that of the unspent but obligated CRRSAA funds. So in 2022, we obligated, or $700,000 of CRRSAA funds were obligated to the WAMPO travel demand model update. However, the contract only came out to be $568,441. So you have about $131,000 extra that is now obligated to this project, but not spent. So the PSC was going to consider how we should go about this. WAMPO staff did have a recommendation in this case. Assuming state and federal rules allow us to do so, WAMPO's recommendation to the PSC was to de-obligate this $131,000 and program it for a new project, WAMPO Travel Demand Update Phase 2, which will provide technical support to ourselves and WAMPO staff past the end of that original contract to update the model that would end in April of 2024. And then making this whole thing a little bit easier, CRRSAA funds don't have any local match requirements. So the PSC and TAC recommendations, they supported our recommendations and they were okay with that, or recommending that we de-obligate those funds and reprogram them for that new project. So that brings us to our action items. There's two, one for the CRP fund awards and one concerning the CRRSAA funds. So first we can approve the PSCs and tax CRP funding recommendations as presented, not approve the PSCs and tax CRP funding recommendations, or approve with specific changes. And we have the same options for the CRRSAA funds: approve as presented, not approve, and approve with specific changes. And does anyone have any specific questions for me?
Any questions? Yes, please. Commissioner Dennis.
Thank you. Can you go back to the Maple Street? That's in my district, so that's why I'm interested in it. Why is it only 39,000? Can you explain that again?
So it gets them just up to their 80% federal funding maximum. So they were just a little bit short of that. So the PSC just gave them that extra $40,000 to get them to that 80%.
Okay.
But that's why it's such a small amount.
But there is additional money that's coming down for that pathway also, isn't there?
There is. I'm not entirely sure on the amount, but yeah, this was just to shore up to that 80%.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner, when we met prior to this, we funded several projects were short of the 80% max. And as funds became available, our group was going to make the recommendation to bring them up to the 80%. So these aren't true figures on some of them. So that's why, and like the Red Bud, they're still going to be short on it. So we're hoping that additional funds come up and so we can get to that 80%. So.
Okay, thank you. And one other question, the electric charging stations, those are for the buses or are they for passenger vehicles?
And passenger vehicles?
But the committee hasn't ever decided on what the location is or what type of chargers to put in. We're not going to come up with a solution until late this year. So how do we know that that's the right solution?
Paul has the information on the project. So Paul, could you please elaborate? Thank you.
Paul Gunzelman, interim city engineer for Wichita, project manager over the multimodal facility. And we had the initial project had included electrical vehicle charging stations with the multimodal facility. That's always been in the project scope. We were putting in the infrastructure. We've been working with Evergy to get the infrastructure. I think we were planning on 8 electrical vehicle charging stations to be installed initially with the project, with the capacity to expand that in the future.
Well, my question comes because I'm on this committee that's trying to decide what the right place to put these electric charging stations and so forth. And one of the things that we discussed is that, you know, that multimodal facility is going to be right across from the ballpark and across from the ice center. is that the right place to have it? Because people that have electric vehicles coming from home may only drive 5 or 10 miles. They get there, their vehicle doesn't need recharge. So then they drive home. They don't need a recharge to go home. Is that really the right location to spend $250,000 for each one of these 4 bank? You're talking about $500,000 or so. I don't remember how much was in this. But is that the right location? Because I don't see people needing it that are local, because they're going to come with a fully charged vehicle when they leave their house.
Yeah, that it's always been in the scope, and we've been working with the Federal Transit Authority. When we got the grant, and we had scoped for electrical vehicle charging stations for personal vehicles within the scope of the project.
Okay, well, I just question whether or not that is the right location for electric vehicle charging stations. You're spending a lot of money. You're spending $1 million on this. And if that's $1 million that we don't need to spend on this, it needs to be spent somewhere else. Is this the right decision? I don't know that I'm ready to vote on this today because I think there's questions that are still to be asked. Because that's what this committee that's looking at these charging locations is trying to come up with, is what is the right place to put it? And now suddenly we're going to spend $1 million and we haven't decided where the right place is to put it.
If I can just make one comment, we had a project selection committee that reviewed this, correct? And James, I know you were on it. Dan, were you on the projects? Would somebody who was on the committee maybe like to speak to the process and how the projects were determined?
The information that we had during that committee, it was, I guess this is news to me. I thought that decision had already been made when we had this discussion about the $1 million for it. I assumed that since they brought it to us with that project, that decision had already been made. I had no idea that was, I was assuming, and I think the other board members that were on that committee were under the assumption that decision had already been made. And so we came with a funding request for that facility. So the information we had when we made the decision was we thought that was already in place, and this is new information to us.
Well, there may be a lot of better places for a charging station like this in this WAMPO region. I'm not sure that multimodal facility is the right place for this.
Commissioner Dennis, also on the electric vehicle plan that you mentioned, that committee, you're serving as committee member for the electric vehicle plan. It's still my understanding it's still evolving. This was in scope that is within the context of a carbon reduction program. My understanding was that the plan development by committee members has its own electric vehicle plan will have funding of a different category. And then carbon reduction program was one thought I had. But James is there to elaborate.
So I think the fact of the matter is that, as Paul stated, this was already in the planning to do these. However, the criteria for the selection of this type of funding was meant specifically for these items. And that you do have a little bit of a gap here in the downtown area where people don't have access to this. And we have the ability to put it in this location without going out and starting to buy property. $1 million won't touch going out and buying other stuff. This is probably convenience wise, it's fairly close to downtown. It's fairly close to Kellogg. It gives access to a lot of people. So, I mean, in that respect, I don't know that you're going to find an exact ideal place to put something. But in all regards, this is probably a decent place to put one. And the fact that we are going to put them in regardless, and the criteria is met for these type of funding, that lends to being able to award to this project.
That's because we can spend money doesn't make it a wise expenditure of money. I want to make that very clear, that we have not decided whether these things ought to be. Suddenly you're deciding to spend $1 million and we don't know if this is the right location.
Gary Jansen, City of Wichita, I might add a little bit more context to how this project originated with the Federal Transit Authority. We have a $15 million grant, more or less, from the FTA. I am absolutely confident their approval of the project included electric vehicle charging stations with the facility. Now, I don't want to diminish, Commissioner, what you've talked about. In my mind, in my opinion, this isn't part of that discussion. There's other locations that probably will make sense in the future. We are, whether this $1 million goes to this project or not, the project will build the infrastructure for the electric vehicle charging stations. And at some point in time, we'll find funding to finish that. I'm not trying to convince you that that means this $1 million has to go here. But by the nature of how this project was developed, and you look at what they wanted for a multimodal facility, James hit on something that I remember being part of the discussion. This location, I think, is seen as desirable to a lot of people, including the FTA, as far as when we've talked to KDOT previously about being eligible for some of their funds, they talked about the same thing, proximity to Kellogg. I don't know that the baseball stadium was ever necessarily that big of a part of it, but when you look at what the hopefully intended future use of a multimodal facility is, you could have people that drive there and park in the morning, ride the bus, and they do need to charge their car during the day. It doesn't matter how far they drove necessarily, but they've got to have a charge when they get back. I just want to make sure it's very clear that as part of this Federal Transit Authority project, we are going to build electric vehicle charging stations. Right now, there's not enough funding to finish that. So to be able to supplement it at least helps with this project to get it done. If that helps or not, I just want to provide a little bit more clarity.
Does it have to be passed today, or can you review it?
There is time, Commissioner Dennis. There is time. It is not critical that it has to be passed today. But then I think your point is well taken. The electric vehicle plan is still evolving. Decisions on the locations are evolving, and our understanding was that the CRP funding has it facilitates that multimodal facility for the transit project, and transit projects in general had a high score on carbon reduction program because the transit facility and FTA, Federal Transit Administration. So that was the context that was looked at, but the way you provided the context is valuable as well. So to answer your question, Commissioner, we have time.
Well,
Next meeting,
so my question, who was the staff person who was responsible for the project selection committee? Was that Ashley, Peter, Nick? Ashley, can you help us here? And I fully appreciate questions and comments, and I think and again, I don't want to have any perceived bias, but this was a application process, correct? Where folks submitted their application. I'm sure there was a standardized template. Did the members of the project selection committee all review it? Did they score it? I mean, can you walk us through the process? My only concern is that an entity invested their time in making these decisions, because I'm sure there were more projects than we're able to fund right there. I could be wrong. And I mean, I just want to make sure that we're not diminishing the work that they did in selecting these projects. So, I mean, it's just like any other RFP project, like, at the city, when we put out a bid and then entities, and then we go through the selection committee, it's pretty uncommon for us then to go back and undo that. So Ashley, can you explain the process to us so that maybe we can have a little more clarity that it was valid?
Sure, yeah. So we actually discussed the selection criteria at TAC and TPB a couple of times before we opened the call for projects on March 1st. And then we waited for all projects to be submitted by May 1st. And then we had specific criteria based on the type of project and scored the projects based on the type of project. And so WAMPO staff scored the projects and then provided those scores to the project selection committee. along with how much funding each project wanted and how much funding we had overall. And then the committee reviewed all of that and thought about what can we do? Because there were 6 projects and we ended up funding 5. So there was more requests than we had money for. So thinking through the kind of the puzzle of how do we fund as much as we can that will help reduce carbon. And so through those discussions, the project selection committee landed on these 5 that are shown here. And that discussion, it was like an hour-long discussion of going through different scenarios and landing on this.
Also, Ashley, the first 3 projects, the request from Sedgwick County was only 39,000 on the Maple Street.
Right.
And, all the request was awarded for Bel Air, Sedgwick County, and Valley Center. Am I correct, Ashley?
Correct.
So that was the maximum that was asked from each of those 3 jurisdictions. And
But Chad, that's not my question. My question is, did the committee that was reviewing this understand that maybe these are not the right locations for electric charging stations? Because we don't know yet.
Well, part of it was, the discussion was, I mean, we really didn't concentrate very much on the charging stations. We were looking at the facility as a whole. I mean, the charging stations was pretty small part of that discussion. It was the multimodal facility as a whole. And unless I'm wrong, James, I mean, you're on the committee, we really didn't concentrate on that part of it. We were looking at the facility as a whole, the funding. And like I said, the charging stations were mentioned, but it wasn't really emphasized, I guess would be a good way to put it.
As Gary stated, the project for the multimodal center has been going on through the FTA and everything for quite some time. It's an existing project that has funding already. This is to supplement the electrical vehicle charging stations. And there are no other options for locations for us to go out and look at. That's not what was submitted for this funding. This is the only one that was submitted for funding for electrical vehicle charging stations. If someone else had a spot, they could have submitted it, but it wasn't done. This was the only option we had to select from. That's what we did for our funding. So really, that's what our selection committee did, was evaluate which projects deserve to get the funding and who opted to submit for this funding. And this is a very good project. Speaking from someone outside of the city, it's a very good project that deals with multimodal transportation within this community. And I think it's a very valid project to be spending this money on. So that's just my 2 cents.
I don't know why we can't defer this one for a month and let the committee, the TAC, go back and take a look at it. And then if it's the right decision from the TAC at that point, I have no problem with it.
So just, and that was going to be my question, I guess, is, I mean, it sounds like we can defer it, but and maybe this is a question for staff or whoever, but so if we do defer it, I want to know, I think everybody wants to know exactly what the process is going to be. So if it goes back to the project selection committee, do we ask them to reevaluate them and rescore them when they've already done it once? And then does it go back to TAC again and follow this? I don't know what would be different that we would get a different outcome. I mean, I'm fine to defer it if that's what is the will of the body, of course, but it sounds like it's going to be redundant just to send it back again. And I would welcome anyone else's feedback if I'm not following that. I don't know what would change unless we ask people to rescore it again, but I don't know why. So Ashley?
Yeah, I was just going to provide a little bit of context about the timing. So we need to have these projects in the tip for November, so they can be obligated and go through the whole process, because this funding will expire very soon. So KDOT needed it in our tip and then the STIP in November, I guess is when it's going to happen. So we need to have it in our tip going through the whole process, so to be approved in October. So we can delay it by 1 month, but the electric vehicle process is much longer. And so I don't know if we'll get to thinking about where the actual stations will go within a month.
Yeah, I guess we funded projects that have come in and say projects that are canceled or came in under bid, and that money reverts back because that's a 25 project. So if we approve and then you guys, the folks that are building this decide not to build it in that location, then that money reverts back to us and we have to reallocate it to somebody else. So, I mean, I don't, delaying it a month, and I'm gonna go back now to what Becky said, what are we gonna do? I mean, we're not gonna have any more information between now and next month than we have right now. But if we don't spend the money, say the plan changes, they can come back just like they have on other projects. We've had other projects during the years that we've been here that we've either canceled or delayed, and we still have that ability to do that. So if we move forward and the plan changes in 6 months or 5 months, we can reallocate that to other funds. I know Redbud alone, we're probably $1 million short on it just for that one, but I don't know what information that we can get between now and this time next month that's going to change the recommendation of the committee.
Well, Dan, I doubt if this plan ever changes from the city, but is it the right plan? That's what I keep asking. Is it the right location? When people go downtown from local, they're not going to need a charge. Is this the right location? That's the only question I have.
And I don't think we can answer that in a month. I mean, I guess that's my answer. And if that changes, I would get 25, so you got 2 years. I mean, that plan is going to be pushed forward. And if it changes between now and then, we pull the money back. I mean, we've done it before. I guess I just don't see what a month delay is going to change the outcome of the decision.
I think the staff recommends because of the transit facility was the primary driving factor, commissioners, behind this. How can transit project be supported was the criteria.
Commissioner, if you'd like to make a motion to defer for a month and we can see where it goes, I'm more than happy to entertain that if that's your preference.
I move that we approve everything except for the multimodal and defer the multimodal for 1 month.
Can I ask a question then on that, sir? Before I call for a second, if we're going to send it back, wouldn't we send everything back? I mean, why just the one project? It seems like then, I mean, what's the group going to say yes or no? And then what do they do with $1 million? I mean, if we're going to say there's a flaw in the process, it wouldn't it be all of them have to be reviewed? Or otherwise, where would the money go? I just don't want to take people's time if there isn't a process of what's going to happen. If anybody knows what I'm saying, help me jump in.
But we heard that one project didn't get funded.
Sound like should be going back to the project selection committee, right? And then back to TAC and then back to TPB.
I guess what I'm asking is if maybe a friendly amendment to your motion of all of the projects go back and not just the one. I mean, if you feel like
I don't have a problem with that. I was just trying to get the staff to move forward on the other projects.
Sure. So would you like to amend your amendment to all the projects go back, or do you want to
have a second, so I don't have to amend it. Move to defer till the next TPB.
Second.
Okay, Ashley?
Can we read a comment real quick before we vote on that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Dan Squires is on the project selection committee and he typed in, as I understand it, the electric charging was part of the overall project either way, and probably a requirement of the larger project award of federal funding. This just capitalizes on the carbon reduction availability of funding to help with a very tight project budget.
Thank you for providing that. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Well, I'd just like to say that, listen to what Dan had to say here and what Commissioner Dennis had said as well. It seems to me that maybe I'm really more in favor of what Dan had proposed, is that if you find that you're not going to need this money or it's not the right location, pull the funding back at a later time, but move forward with the projects as they are now, because I kind of don't I don't see what we're going to do for another month. I don't understand what we would do by deferring, but that's just what I'm hearing. I think that I probably will vote against this motion.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, we'll go ahead and call the vote. So there's a motion to delay this for a month and vote on it at next month's TPB. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
So the motion fails. So going back to the original action item, is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the CRP funding as proposed with the proviso that if at a future time we find that this is the inappropriate place for the electrical charging stations, that funding be pulled back.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. We'll call the vote. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed?
I voted aye with this because of the way the motion was made. As at the end of this year, when we find out that's not a good location, I want to make sure that we come back to it. Thank you.
No, thank you, Commissioner. That's a great point. Appreciate it. I appreciate the robust discussion, right? All right, so the next thing then is the CRRSAA funding, which I think will probably be much less involved of a discussion. So I would entertain a motion regarding the CRRSAA funding. Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Troy or Russ. All those in favor, please say aye. All right, thank you. Anyone opposed? Fantastic. Next on the agenda then is the 2023 Projects Not Obligated. Nick, I think, is joining us.
Thank you. I am just going to briefly introduce the presenters for this. In April, it was established through a vote of this body that there is a new requirement in the reasonable progress policy of the WAMPO TIP policy document to the effect that if a project is in the current from the current federal fiscal year, it has WAMPO suballocated funds programmed on it, is not yet obligated, then they must present on it both in writing and verbally to the TAC meeting after May 31st and the TPB meeting after that one. Now, there's already presentations of this sort at the TAC meeting last month. And so now they're going to the other required presentation here today to the TPB. And there are 3 projects that were affected by this. The Seneca and 63rd Street Bike Ped Pathway in Haysville, the West Street Harry DePawnee project in Wichita, and the Meridian Avenue project in Valley Center. And if the presenters are willing, we can go through these in the order in which they are listed.
Will Black, City of Haysville, got a brief update. This is the project scope, installation of a 10-foot wide multi-use path on Seneca, just north of the floodway to 63rd Street South, then east to Mabel. The new obligation date, October of 2023, which does push that into federal fiscal year 2024. Let date of November of 2023 and completion in spring of 2024. We do have the construction and maintenance agreement with Union Pacific Railroad. It's fully executed. That took quite a while to get that one done. And I was informed that KDOT's legal team is working on the city-state agreement. And our city engineer that's doing the design basically has the PS&E plan set ready, including the forms 1304 and 1306. And there's got a map showing where the project is. I can answer any questions.
Any questions? All right. Thank you very much for your information and for the presentation. James.
Hello. Next presentation here, please. Oh, press on the screen. Oh, there we go. Sorry, figured it out now. James Wagner, Special Projects Engineer for the City of Wichita. I'm here to speak on 87N-0720-01 West Street, Harriet Pawnee. So basically, we provided a project schedule, keying in on some of the dates required to meet some of the fiscal requirements for this project. So our target date of August 15th, 2023, here where we'll have final plans submitted, specifications and project estimate or PS&E to KDOT. Also with some of the supporting documents required, right-of-way clearance. We're in the process of acquiring our last remaining tract. We're expecting that by the August 15th date. Don't know exactly when we'll get that, but we're thinking pretty soon on that one yet. Permit status, in the process of finalizing our agreement with the railroad, expected by July 20th. And utility relocation status, we're in the process of beginning our utility relocates, and our expected completion date is at the end of 2023. In the process of finalizing our agreement with Black Hills Energy to replace one of their lines in private easement, and they're expected to have that by July 20th. Final plans, specs, and project estimate. We are approximately 95% complete with getting our last updates to the plans and expected by August 14th. Some of the other key dates here are from September 3rd to October 20th, we're going to be submitting all of our stuff for Federal Highway Administration review and KDOT review of our PS&E, and we'll receive our authority to award obligation of funding and do our advertising in that time frame. And then our anticipated project bid date is October 20th, 2023. Questions?
Questions for James?
Just a curiosity, does that project include any rebuild of that intersection with K42?
It does. It's going to look like this.
I can't see the detail, but that's good. I'm glad you're doing something with it.
So if you'll allow me, sorry, this is the new K42 where it was right here. And this will be a single intersection at West and Pawnee. And this will be a continuous T intersection that allows free flow through traffic for eastbound on Pawnee. So it provides, I don't remember the exact numbers, but you decrease the time that you're sitting at that intersection by almost 4 times or something like that. It's a great improvement for the timing of getting through that intersection and such. So.
Well, I appreciate that because I've sat through that light many times.
I think anybody that's ever gone through has sat through some problems there. Yes. So any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, James.
There's the next one.
Brent with Valley Center, right? And Brent's online? So he's not online? Okay. Yep, we'll just move on to the next item then. Item B, under discussion updates, fans with plans with KDOT law enforcement liaisons. Ashley, I got to hear a little bit about this on Friday. I'm super excited for you to share with the rest of the group. So please go ahead.
Thank you. So WAMPO has been working a lot with KDOT as far as all of their safety efforts that they're making in the region. And we've had some really great conversations with Brian and Troy and Daniel. And we were like, you know what, it'd be great if they came and presented to you all. So here is Brian.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to fast forward just a little bit, Ed. So yes, Ashley, Chad, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come speak about what the Sports Commission has going on in partnership with KDOT and the other Fans with the Plan Coalition members here in Wichita. Again, I'm Brian Turner. I'm with the Wichita Sports Commission. I'm the Director of Community Partnerships. So this has kind of been something that's been in the works for about the last 18 months. And it's really kind of a way to take KDOT's marketing efforts that they have going on within the venues and the sports team here in Wichita and expand those into the surrounding community. And then from there, it's kind of spiraled into this way of how do we capture on this team affinity, this sports affinity that people have. People love sports. People love to idolize figures from sports teams. So it's really a way to capture on that. So far to date, our Fans with the Plan Coalition is made up of these marketing partners that you see here, from the Wind Surge, the Thunder, Hartman Arena, the Wichita Open, the most recently taken place, all the way up to K-State and KU Athletics are all a part of this. And that extends even further beyond into the DUI Victim Center and MAD. So really, it's an all-encompassing coalition to really drive awareness for the need to have a plan in ahead when somebody either is attending an event or is going out to watch an event at a bar or a restaurant or whatever that may be. So again, really the idea was to take KDOT's messaging that's going on in these venues and expand it into the community. So Fans with the Plan derived from that. So it is one consistent message that's being expanded in the community. So it really comes up with that unified brand to create that consistent message throughout the community. So as really the coalition for Fans of the Plan derived from Drive Safe Sedgwick. And that really narrows it down to where the Sports Commission got involved. Our focus is sports in the community, whether it be professional, youth, collegiate, whatever that is. As the coalition met, we identified these four popular topics. We're really the focus on our marketing and our expansion into the community. So planning ahead, pre-event promotion, prominent rideshare, the need for those drop-off and pickup locations, as well as capturing the audience while they're in the bars and restaurants, before they go to an event, after an event, or while they're watching an event on TV. So just real quick here, as you can look, I won't read them all off, but planning ahead, round trip rideshare. So having that, you're able to book that before you even go to a restaurant or to the game. Pre-event promotion. So it's really heavily focused on ticketing apps, know before you go emails, things of those sorts. So through all of our efforts in the 2022 fiscal year with KDOT, it was about 5.75 million planned exposures through both digital and in person in the venues. So this has been a really big focus for us since Fans with the Plan really launched with the beginning of the Wind Surge season. It's been drop off and pickup locations within the city. So in place currently are Riverfront Stadium, Hartman Arena. There was at the Wichita Open, and then Intrust Bank Arena as well. So there are dedicated locations to where Uber Lyft can drop off. Our next big focus is, now that we have those in place, is to make them identifiable. So it's easy for a user to get to a place to be picked up, and it's easy for an Uber Lyft driver to find them to pick them up. This is just some examples of some different signage and stuff that's in place. On your left there, you see at Hartman Arena, their location is on the north side of the arena, the northwest or northeast corner, where they have dedicated pickup locations. And then with the Wind Surge, it's outside the Delano exit. And then really kind of one of the big areas for the Sports Commission is we don't have a venue. We have several events with the Prairie Fire Race Series and the NBC World Series that we use that marketing messaging to spread to. But with us, it's expanding that message into the bars and restaurants. So we're currently in a place to where we've identified 30 different bars and restaurants around Old Town, Intrust Bank Arena, Riverfront Stadium, Hartman, Wichita State, that we will target messaging with a way for fans to be able to book their rideshare from that location We're currently working with Uber and Lyft to secure either a promotional rate or a free first-time ride. So where once they book that, they'll be able to have a free ride or a discounted ride. And as a reward and encouraging them for the make the decision, they have an opportunity to register to win tickets from different sporting events in the area, the Royals, the Chiefs, Thunder, Wind Surge, and concerts as well through Interest Bank Arena. So again, just some different examples of what all is going on. So any questions on that portion of it?
I don't have a question, but just great job. I mean, I think it's really important and something different and unique, and I applaud your efforts and especially all the collaborating partners that are involved. It's just good to see our community come together to all address one issue. So good on you, and thank you for taking the lead as the Sports Commission.
Thank you.
So Troy and Daniel next.
Either click here or click on the screen.
Okay, my name's Troy Wells. I'm with KDOT. I'm retired from the sheriff's office here in Sedgwick County. One of the things we do, this is Daniel Kaiser. He retired from the Wichita Police Department. One of the things we do is we go around and we encourage departments all over the state to do more traffic safety to reduce our fatalities in the state of Kansas. So this is the presentation we give to our officers. Once a year, we give out, we do dinners, lunches for them, and tell them thank you for what you do. So we start off with thank you, and oops, went the wrong way. Right now, this just came out. Our fatalities are down 5.2% from where they were last year at this time. So we're at 199 deaths in the state, which is good. It's still not great. We want to have 0 deaths. Will we ever make that? I doubt it. But if we reduce every year, that would be great. This is where our seatbelt rate use is in the state of Kansas at this point. So we got 14% of the people not wearing seatbelts. And this is some of the impacts. Did you know the driver of the vehicle not belted in? Only 31% of the passengers are belted. So if the driver's not belted, passengers sometimes are not belted. So it's not good. This is just the stats showing that. I always put something in our presentations to get everybody's attention, because you got to smile with life, right? You got to joke around a little bit. And my thought is, if you're not wearing your seatbelt when you're driving, are you stupid? Yes. And being in law enforcement for all those years I was in, all you heard was, well, if I got to get on my vehicle quick, how long does it take you to undo your seatbelt? If you're in a wreck, where are you going to be in that car if you're not wearing your seatbelt? At least you're wearing your seatbelt, you were there in control of your vehicle. A few years back, they had a deal, I think it was down in Arizona, where they showed a video during the Super Bowl where a mother was involved in a wreck. She didn't die, but her baby died because she was thrown right into her baby and killed her baby. That was in the car seat. Do we want that to happen? Do we want to live with that? No. So this is just some stats we put together from the 21 stats. 50% of all the vehicles involved in crashes, 34% of fatal crashes. So these are 2 main campaigns for the year that we get law enforcement to do, and everybody knows about click it or ticket, or you drink, you drive, you lose. We also do a Thanksgiving and a New Year's Eve enforcement too. But during these dates, of course, click it tickets already passed. And I will say our numbers from click it or ticket this year, numbers are still coming in, but we've had some fantastic numbers on enforcements, and our seatbelt tickets have gone down a little bit. but that's only because our seatbelt rates is going up little by little, so. We do a couple other enforcements because the one lady was talking about schools here. We do have 2 enforcements at schools every year that we get law enforcement to participate in. And what we have them do is we want them to go to schools like 30 minutes before school, 30 minutes after school, and make sure everybody's wearing their seatbelt and seatbelted in. And how we work with that is if they participate, if they find no violations, that's great. We have some schools that are like that. But we don't ask them to go out there and write every kid a ticket. Sometimes it's just purely education, and we have pamphlets that they can hand out, and we make sure they announce this enforcement coming up before, a week or 2 before it even happens, because we don't want to spring it on anybody. But I'll show you a map earlier of our areas, but what we do is everybody turns in their stats. They're put in for a drawing for traffic safety equipment. And all this traffic safety equipment comes from federal funding. And like I tell everybody, we all pay federal taxes, right? I want my federal taxes to come back here to help the people in the state of Kansas. I don't want them to go any other state. That's my personal opinion. In 2022, this is our stats for where we did. We had 152 agencies participating. We wrote over 8,500 tickets for speeding. They caught 340, and this is just in a 2-week period, okay? DUIs 340, child restraints, and I still don't understand why people don't buckle their kids in. I just don't understand it. 141 tickets in texting, over 8,000 other tickets written, and over 1,200 arrests made just for other non-DUI arrests. So in a 2-week period, 152 agencies, they did good. 420, everybody knows what 420 is. That's when all the dopers want to smoke dope. That's their day. So we help them celebrate by doing a campaign to go out there and hopefully stop them smoking marijuana. Everybody remember Cheech and Chong? And like we tell everybody, DUID, doing drugs, is not a victimless crime. Now, one of the things I did on the sheriff's office is I reconstructed the fatality crashes. A lot of times it wasn't just a DUI, a lot of times they were on drugs. So, we're not talking just like the marijuana drugs, we're talking about prescription drugs too, that they shouldn't be driving when they're taking it, so. And like we push, all impaired driving in Kansas is unlawful. And when we're talking about marijuana, I saw something the other day where this female was talking and going, I only smoke weed because marijuana is bad for you. I'm thinking, is this where we're going in culture today? But right now, marijuana is not recreational or harmless. Still Schedule I drug. Does marijuana cause impairment? Yeah, it does. And like we said, we would just want to make sure we educate people and make sure we have enforcement and make sure nobody else gets hurt out there. And right here, there was 4 of us in the state of Kansas. And that's our areas. Like I got all the yellow. Al Ackerman, he's a retired highway patrol officer. He's got all the orange. Daniel here's got all the blue. And Don Hughes, he just joined us. He's retired from the highway patrol. He'll be taking over the green part. So the guy who had his area, he decided 70 was old enough. He needed to retire. I don't know why. But like I said, I mean, there's my information. Anybody can call me anytime they want. If I don't answer, I will always call you back. I will say I've been looking around of the agencies or the cities are here. And every one of the cities participates in our campaigns, which I want to say I appreciate. Because we do have a problem here in Sedgwick County with speed and DUIs and fatality crashes. I talked to one of the PD officers the other day up on Kellogg. He had a crotch rocket go by him while he was on another stop, 161 miles an hour. So, and like I tell people, when I saw something like that, I kind of moseyed that direction, just get my shovel out because you're going to be scraping them off the street somewhere. So, and hopefully nobody else, but that's what we want to prevent. That's what we want to stop happening and saving lives and making sure everybody's seatbelted up and stay safe. I'll let Dan talk here.
How you doing? I'm Daniel Kaiser. I am a contract laborer for Kansas Department of Transportation. I was a Wichita police officer for 25 years. My niche in law enforcement has always been traffic safety. I was a motor officer and a traffic officer for 23 of my 25. This new ideal that we're thinking of here is moving pretty rapidly. And again, it's thanks to people like Brian with the Sports Commission and others, WAMPO now. And we want to thank you first off to have this audience with you, because it ain't just about the people that's involved, it's the people that we want to get involved. Listen, I've wrote tickets and Troy's wrote tickets in this community for 30 some years, Troy, 20 for me, 25 for me. And that doesn't always change the behaviors. It makes people upset and you get complaints and then it moves on from there. Some people change because they realize, oh, that's the right thing to do. But most people nowadays, they don't change. They're going to do what's best for them as they think. But when that happens to come to about where we have collisions, and I, you know, that's one thing that we need to change is we always call it an accident report that we fill out here. Guys, it's not an accident. If someone has their head out looking about what they're doing instead of doing everything but driving, normally an accident or crash, collision, wreck could be avoided, or at least the fatality or maybe the severity of it. So that's one thing we need to change from our law enforcement aspect, is get our heads in law enforcement, our chain of command, to maybe change that form to a collision if it sounds prettier than a wreck or a crash, but to change that form to where it's not an accident. We've got to change our friends, our families, and our communities' thought process as far as crashes out here. They're not accidents or crashes. And once we start changing that, maybe we'll start thinking about, oh, I could be involved in a crash, I could be hurt, instead of, oh, I had an accident, I'll have to, you know, pay more insurance or pay a ticket. That's not the important thing. It's saving lives or keeping lives from being impaired as far as a physical problem the rest of their life, because it's something that'll maim you. So that's why we're here. We want to get you guys involved. We want to use you guys to reach out to the people that you have influence to. That's the most important thing, is getting this message going. This Fans with a Plan is growing leaps and bounds. Wichita may be the pilot program for this for our host state. And then as soon as the state catches on, I think it'll travel other places. I already know Kansas City is already looking into that and wanting the information of how this all got started. And it was just getting a few people kind of on fire thinking, hey, this is important. We're losing way too many people, or we're having more people hurt than what should ever happen in Sedgwick County. We have got the best city in the nation if we'll think about one another before ourselves. This is a great place to live, let alone our county, all the small towns and all they offer. But it comes down to, what are we going to do? Are we going to just talk about it? Or are we going to blame the law enforcement for not getting enough tickets out there? Because that doesn't work. I've done it for a while. We want enforcement, don't get me wrong, but we want to change the mentality of people thinking, hey, it's not good to, I snuck home last night on a DUI, you know. We don't want that. We want to say, hey, that's not the right thing to do. Nowadays, there's people that come pick you up. I'll pick you up as a friend, or there's a Uber or Lyft, you know. And that's the big thing is Brian was showing us the people involved. MAD has a great connection with Lyft and Uber. They're gonna be able to assist us in our community with a national organization and all. And it's about getting people on board. And that's why we're here. Just want to give you guys the information. If you have any questions, reach out to us. We reach out to WAMPO, sorry. And they're the ones that really to take this on. They're actually going to now take the mustard of this and bring it all together. KDOT come in because we're losing too many lives. So they came in, kind of got this going, but now WAMPO is going to take it off. Me and Troy will always be here to assist in any way we can. the sports commission is right there getting involved. And we want you guys involved. We want your partnership because we want your influence for zoning to make it easier for Lyft and Uber to get in there, for law enforcement to maybe assist in some of the things that's going to happen in a commercial area that's so like downtown. Our streets are fairly small, but we have a lot of traffic. Why not use Uber and Lyft? But every time we have an event, it's ideal to have that plan. You know, we're all supposed to be fans, if nothing else, fans of one another, that we don't hurt one another on our streets. And then make that plan before we're impaired. If we make the plan when we're impaired, guess what, guys? We're going to fail. We want to make that plan before we're impaired and have that already taken care of. So thank you so much for your time. I really hope you jump on board and become part of the solution, because writing tickets doesn't always get done. So thank you so very much.
Thank you so very much, Commissioner Dennis, either as a question or a comment.
Well, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it. And for those people that don't think that, or that do think that it's a victimless crime for marijuana, that think that we shouldn't issue tickets because people are high on marijuana, that think we ought to go and legalize it throughout the state, go talk to the parents of Deputy Sidney Carter or any of our Sedgwick County Sheriff's officers that were affected by her death. That was because someone was impaired with marijuana. Thank you.
Fantastic point. Thank you. And if I can take a point of privilege, back in January of 2020, Councilmember Fry, our Director of Parks and Rec for the city, and myself were traveling to Topeka. We unexpectedly hit ice. We were traveling down the turnpike at a pretty high speed, hit the wall, spun around, hit the wall again, totaled the vehicle. I was in the back seat. I had my seatbelt on, but I still was in the emergency room with a neck sprain and a severe concussion. If I hadn't had my seatbelt on in the back seat, I would have gone through the windshield. So afterwards, we did a PSA for the city of Wichita about making sure you wear your seatbelt every time, even if you're in the back seat, because people are less likely to wear it there. So I personally saw and felt the impact of a seatbelt saving my life. So I could not be more enthusiastic about this and applaud you more for your efforts.
To add a comment to that, I was in a wreck with one of the county cars one time and went to the hospital and everything else. Go to my personal doctor. First thing he says, "Oh, you only got hit in the head, nothing major."
I love your levity. Thank you, Troy. Any other comments or questions? Thank you for what you're doing. It's not only impacting lives, it's quite possibly saving them. So thank you.
Thank you. We really do appreciate you guys, and we hope you do jump on board. Thank you.
Excellent. Next, 5310 Awards. Dora, if you can join us.
Hello, everyone. Dora Gallo, Transportation Planner here at WAMPO. I'll be going over the 5310 awards. So the 5310 grant program is also known as the Enhanced Mobility of Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Program. And it is administered by the Federal Transit Administration, FTA. The program focuses on supporting transportation services that go beyond traditional public transportation, such as paratransit, wheelchair accessible vans, and other specialized vehicles. So the federal funding amount available for this year's Section 5310 program was funded for the fiscal years of 2021 and 2022, and that total is $1,077,144, or you can see the separated amounts there. And this timeline was for July 1st through June 30th. The selection committee scored the different applicants by the demonstration of need, addressing accessibility, and our collaboration goals, meeting specific needs of older adults and or disabilities, and then they must be in the coordinated transit district 9. So there were 14 projects that were submitted, and total amount requested were $2.2 million. There was one applicant that did not get, that received funding this year because they missed one thing on their application forms, but they had received previous funding in the previous years. And here's the list of the agencies that were that received federal funds for the 5310 this year. Any questions or comments? Thank you.
Questions for Dora? Anybody have any questions for Dora? All right. Thank you, Dora. Thank you for all your efforts. Really appreciate it. Next, we're going to go to committee and partner updates regarding the executive committee. The next executive committee meeting is August 3rd at 11 a.m. It's here in this building in the Metropolitan Area Planning Department conference room. All are welcome. I don't think we've seen the agenda quite yet, but anybody who wants to join us, more than happy to have you. Next, Jessica is joining us virtually for the Transit Spotlight. Jessica?
Thank you. I do have a screen to share.
We're working on it right now.
Okay, perfect. While we're working on that, I'm Jessica Warren, Director of Mobility Management for South Central Kansas. As a quick overview of what mobility management is, the goal of mobility management is to increase access to and awareness of mobility options. So walking, biking, public transportation. And this is done generally in two ways. The first way is by working with individuals, figuring out what their needs are and helping them get connected to current resources. And the other is working with transportation providers. So that's identifying gaps in communities, in regions, identifying the things that they need to do in order to provide accessible services to riders in the community. It looks like I'm still not able to share my screen. I got a message saying I should be able to. So while that's still working, our CTD, Coordinated Transit District, we reside within CTD 9. And I do have a map to share if we're able to pull that up. If not, I'll just send out a link here in a moment. CTD 9 is a 7-county region, and the CTDs are drawn out by, yes, that's it, thank you. So if you'll click on the Getting Around button, and then I Need a Ride. So that website we were just looking at is ksrides.org. And so what we're looking at is a directory and map. If you can scroll down so we can see the whole map. So in the lime green in 9, that is our Coordinated Transit District. If anyone is familiar with KDOT's other districts like the highways and bridges, you'll see that it is slightly different. So when we talk about transportation district, the transit district is different than transportation districts. So as we look at this map, we have about 25 transportation providers within our CTD, our 7 counties, that receive money in some way, shape, or form from the FTA. 11 of those are general public transportation providers. And we do have one more that will be coming online sometime in the next couple years, likely. As Dora showed in the last couple of slides, the city of Mulvane received funding for starting a general public transportation program. So this resource is great to share with people who are trying to find a ride. If you would click in on Butler County, the BU, you can click in on any county that you're looking for, and it shares the resources that are available, the transportation resources that are available. So you can see Butler County Department on Aging has the general public, and then Capper Foundation serves their own clients. So this is a fantastic resource for anyone who is trying to find a ride. And if you go back to the ksrides.org website, it's just ksrides.org if that helps. So there is a section that's about us, and then I believe it says meet our staff. And then that has all of the contact information for all of the mobility managers. There's 6 of us across the state right now. So that will have all of our contact information if we're not able to pull it up. So that's how you can contact me. I also, the Kansas mobility managers as of July 1 are fully funded by KDOT. There previously was a local match requirement that has been terminated, so it's just fully funded by KDOT. The work plans budget are all determined by the regions, by the organizations in our region. And then each mobility manager has a host agency that does administrative accounting processes. My host agency is WAMPO. Yeah, so if you go back, I'll just show you real quickly. So the, oh gosh, about us on that top line on the very right, and then our team. So for anyone who's trying to find a ride, they can go to ksrides.org and click that getting around button or the about us in order to find the team. And if you just want to scroll through that real quick and show everyone what that looks like, that's everything I had to share. If anyone has any questions or comments, please let me know.
Any questions for Jessica or any comments? I don't see any right now. Thank you, Jessica. We appreciate the update. Sorry it took a minute to get the screen, but we got you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Next, Mike, our good friend with Kansas Department of Transportation.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. I did want to give a quick update on the status of the KDOT secretary. So Governor Kelly has appointed Calvin Reed to serve as the next Secretary of Transportation. That will go before the Senate Confirmation Oversight Committee later this month. And then in January, Mr. Reed will be up for formal Senate confirmation. So it's kind of a two-step process. And now for the wrinkle, if there is such a thing. So as of June 25th, Mr. Reed's term as acting secretary expired. So until his appointment is approved later this month by the Confirmation Oversight Committee, our chief engineer, Greg Schieber, will assume the role of acting secretary for several weeks. So technically, Greg Schieber is our secretary right now.
So we're too quick on the card, or is it okay still to send?
I think that's your call. I'd send it.
Go ahead and send it.
Yeah.
And for Commissioner Dennis and Hal and Gary and some others, this is a bit redundant, but we do have a card that we're asking everyone to sign for soon to be secretary. We think Calvin Reed, congratulating him.
So during this interim period, Mr. Reed's official title is senior advisor. And acting secretary Schieber will also get to continue to serve in his role as chief engineer. So I'm sure he's a very busy person right now. So yeah, with that, I do have the card. If anybody would like to sign it, I will be happy to bring it over to you. And yeah, we're happy to have Secretary Reed and Greg Schieber at the helm. So thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you for being here today. Any questions for Mike? Safe travels back home. We're always glad when you're in Wichita. See, Tom is not here today. And do we have folks from Federal Highway? I know it says probably not in attendance, but is Rick or Matt with us? Ashley, do you know? With that, we come to the end of the meeting. I really appreciate everyone being here. Thank you for your participation, for your discussion. Thanks to staff for all that you do. For the agenda items you bring to us, it takes just a few moments, but we know there are hours and days and weeks and months in preparing for the work that you do, and that is not lost on me. So thank you for all you do and for our region. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Second, all those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed can stay. Have a great day. See you next month.